Hello everyone. TerraBits, an 11-day-old DMT-based Ordinals project that I believe is extremely undervalued at the moment. Disclaimer, of course, I am a holder. I've got a handful of these, and I'm just doing my part to spread awareness about the possibilities of extending on digital matter theory to go beyond the typical use case, which at the moment is to create PFPs or art out of DMTs. So I'm going to run through, hopefully fairly quickly, what this project is about, what they are doing, and more recently, actually today, they released their TerraBook, which is it's a Git book, but they call it TerraBook, quite suitable, and just some closing thoughts on what I think the potential is of this particular project. So Terabits are available on Magic Eden. Current floor price is around 00, give it a quick refresh, 0058. They were selling for around 003 and under for a little while. Then they shot up to around that 0067 range. Then they came back down to 003. And with the release of the TerraBook today, I believe that's kind of gotten people interested again, and now we are here. So I'm going to go through the TerraBook, which pretty much gives you an overview of how this came about, what they are doing, what they're planning for the future, and then I'll just add my thoughts onto this as well. First of all, the team, as far as I know, they're not doxed, but they say that they are OGs in the ordinal space, and I've made a few connections of bits and pieces that I've found myself that lead me to believe that they are, as they claim, they're OGs, or at least they know what they're doing, and everything that I've seen so far in terms of product development and releasing of information, teasers, etc., has been quite good and consistent. So from my point of view, something like this 11 days in would be fairly difficult to achieve for your typical run-of-the-mill project. So I do think that there is some high IQ people behind this. Hopefully I'm right, but let's get into the TerraBook. So the intro basically says, since the inception of digital matter theory, and I'll talk about this a little bit later on, our team has been closely monitoring developments within the space. The emergence of projects such as NatCats, which I'm sure you all know, Chaos and Attributes, has highlighted the transformative potential of DMTs as the basis of ordinal projects. So for a bit of background on DMT, I'll just read this little blob. DMT explores the potential to create digital substances by analyzing inherent patterns within blockchain data. This framework suggests that data is not just an abstract entity, but a rich source that, when properly harnessed, can give rise to new forms of digital materiality. If you are familiar with bitmaps, that sort of built on the concept of using data that's within a confirmed Bitcoin block to create the mapping of what looks like a block of land or lands, right? So we observed current trends converging on the use of Bitcoin block data solely as a means to generate art. So this is referring to the majority of these NAT projects that use data from within a block as inputs to then generate outputs, typically in the form of those PFPs that have triangles and squares and things like that. Nothing too advanced at the moment, but I'm sure it's a starting point for people to build upon to make bigger and better things. And NatCats is the first to use that concept. So while this is innovative, we believe that more could be accomplished. We did not want our collectors to merely see the block data represented in the art. We aimed to create worlds that would not only embody this data, but also reward our holders. Just to skip forward, the reward is in the form of runes that are currently being mined on these blocks. If I show you one of these blocks, you will see that they do look like lands with deposits of the yellow, which is gold, the silver is ore, and then there are green for forests, and then just your lighter green is the land, and the blue obviously water. Now all of these variables, specifically these numbers, are placed into a formula which has been confirmed by the team. They've given out the formula actually, and it comes up with a score that then correlates to how much of the runes that the land is mining per day. And it is said that in future these tokens, or the runes, once they're dropped post halving, that's when the runes protocol itself is implemented, that they will have a use case, or that they're looking at various ways to build utility into these tokens. So I'll just go back to the Terra book. These worlds and rewards would arise directly from the very block data being inscribed, and thus Terabits came into existence. Now they go on to talk about non-arbitrary tokens, non-arbitrary spaces, which is a concept that builds on the DMT concept to build terrain like you see here. So that's kind of cool. So that kind of ties in with the worlds that they were talking about. And then they are also introducing a concept that is new to me called non-arbitrary benefits. I will link this Terra book in the video description so you can go and have a look at it for yourself. But let's go into the generation of these actual plots, right? So how does one become, like, how did this become this on the left, and the one on the right is obviously different. And it all comes down to this digital matter theory, which, to explain it fairly simply, is about using data that's embedded within confirmed blocks on the Bitcoin blockchain and using those as inputs to produce this kind of output. So instead of these values corresponding to like a PFP, they've opted to use them to plot out land. So for example, this one here, these two that you can see here, they are explaining that the one on the left has more gold mines than the one on the right. And the reason for that is because the particular block that the left one belongs to, block number 590960, had a higher block miner reward than the one on the right. And that's why there's more gold deposits. And then further down, this relates to the how much land there is compared to water, and that value is determined by the block weight. So there are many different fields that you can use that are within a block and use that data as a seed to generate things. DMT is a very complex topic. It can get a little bit out of control and like too much information, but it's very interesting, and I highly recommend that you go and check out the DMT Git book. What I will do for the purposes of this video is to try to explain to you exactly how, for example, this particular terabit is created. I think that would be a pretty good thing to do. So we're going to work backwards from here, and we want to see the code behind this picture, because this image is not like, it's not an image that's inscribed. It's not a JPEG on a Bitcoin or Satoshi, right? So what we need to do is grab the inscription ID, like, have I copied that? I think I've copied it. And then we're going to go to ord.io / and we'll put that inscription ID. So we're working backwards, right? So that this particular inscription, this is it here. And you will see that it actually is like text, right? So you see a JSON string here, and it is referring to a couple of things, right? So this DEP refers to the deployer of this terabits element. So we've got to go back and think about elements first, right? Okay, so I'll skip that part. So In the real world, around you, there are elements. So you remember the periodic table of elements, right? And I can't even name the first 10. I've forgotten them all. But if you think about a bottle of water or the water that you drink, you know it as water. I know it as water. I ask for water at the restaurant. But some people ask for H2O. They refer to it as H2O because the elements that make up the water are 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom, right? So that's water. So water equals these elements. And in the same way, the Bitcoin blockchain, within each confirmed block, I mean literally you, or anyone can define elements, right? So this is the whole thing about DMT. So think about if you were in the real world and you discovered a new species of fish, because there are many fish, and because you discovered it, you get to name it yourself, and probably you get to name it with your own name. That happens in the real world. So kind of like that, you can go and define an element in the blockchain, in the Bitcoin blockchain. You give it a name, you give it, optionally, you give it a pattern that it needs to have, right? So for example, okay, so a tiger must have this pattern, right? If it doesn't, it's not a tiger. So it's like that. So you say, I'm going to register, I'm going to create or name this element. And then I'll show you, where it all links in. But let me get to the digital matter theory, right? So element registry, formal recognition and registration of discovered patterns for Bitcoin data, right? Inscribing a .element inscription using the following format. You need a name followed by a dot and then a pattern. This field is optional. Dot field dot element. And if we have a look here, the parameters, name, right? Name. You got to give it a name. So tiger, right? So the pattern is optional. If you don't specify it, then it just assumes that the whole field, the whole contents of the field are used, right? So that's optional. And the field is one of these things. They have a list here. There's 37 of them, and more could be added later. So just remember that, right? So if we go back to the tiger, I like a tiger because I support a team here in the rugby league. Well, some of you American friends would have seen that recently in Vegas, that brutal sport. I support a team called the West Tigers, and they've been dead last the last 2 years, and they're probably going to be last again this year. So that's not good. But if I were to define that as an element or an animal, the name would be tiger. The pattern would be orange with black stripes. And the field would be, it would be like on the outside, on the skin, right? So if it has orange and black stripes on like its paw, on the underside of the paw, then it's not a tiger, because the field says, right? I said specifically it has to be orange and black, and it has to be on the skin, right? So that's how you define a pattern, an element, sorry, in Bitcoin, okay, in a block. So let's go back to the Terabit, and I'm just going to go back because we're working up the tree. So we started with the final product, and now we're going up to try and find what is the element definition, the definition of a Terabits element. So we need to keep going back up the tree, and this is another inscription ID, known as, this is the deployer. So we go back here. Now, this one has this field LELEM, short for element. So the element you will find in this inscription. Let's have a look. All right. So Terabits dot A3D1 dot 11 dot element. And have a look at this. Remember this pattern registration. Name dot pattern dot field dot element. So name dot pattern dot field. It's meant to be the 11. He won't let me select it. There we go. 11 dot element. So we go back to here. Have a look for the field. ID 11 is the bits field in hex format. So every confirmed Bitcoin block will have all of these fields available. We need to look for field number 11 as specified here, but the field is called bits, right? Okay, so going back to the final product, the Terabits, this name contains the block ID, block number. So 592147. I have here a block explorer. So 592147. I'm gonna bring this up and see all these different fields that are available, right? And these are all non-arbitrary, right? They're not random. They were created by all of the transactions that made up the block. And the bits field is right here, bits. You can see here. But the number is whole, and I need to convert it to hex, because if you remember here, if we look at field 11, it says bits, and it specifically says hex. So I'm going to convert that number that I found in the bits field to hex, and it gives me 171BA3D1. A3D1, which if you recall, was specified in here as the pattern. So a block that contains A3D1 hex within field 11, the bits field, qualifies as a terabits element. If it doesn't have that, then it cannot, there's no match. So the terabits element doesn't exist in that block. So I'm going to go and come up with a random block in that explorer. So I'm going to go 700,000, block number 700,000. Keep an eye on this bits field here. The number will change. Okay, it's changed. So if I get that and I go and convert it to hex again, remove the commas, convert 170F48E4, right? It doesn't contain A3D1. Therefore, block number 700,000 cannot be a terabits. It doesn't qualify. With these DMT inscriptions, it's a little bit of a how can I say, like, it's more advantageous if you know what you're doing. So if you have scripting knowledge, work with APIs and stuff like that, because you have to go and find these patterns. So if you were to look at, let's say we go back to day one where they just released this project and they said, here is the element pattern. Go and find blocks that have A3D1 in hex in the bits field. And if you find it, that is when you can go and inscribe. If I go back on this, particular inscription, and I showed you earlier that it contained, this one, right? So this is a text inscription, and it references a block number. You can see here BLK stands for block, and you need to insert the block number that has the corresponding or the matching element pattern. So if I were to put 700,000 in this and inscribe it, then it actually wouldn't turn into a terabits because the pattern's not there. It would still be an ordinal, it'll still be an inscription, but it would be useless, right? So for the purposes of being an inscription, it's still valid. Anything is valid, really. You can inscribe just like one letter if you want, but it will not be a terabit. I hope that makes sense. Now I'm going to go back to the TerraBook and talk about the runes, right? So now that people were able to inscribe or buy off the secondary market these terabits, and they each come with different values in these fields, which are derived, as we saw earlier, from various Bitcoin fields. So the block miner reward corresponds to the number of gold mines, block weight corresponds to the proportion of land versus water. Okay, so having that is, okay, it's cool, right? It's a little bit different to having a PFP. So instead of using these inputs to generate a PFP, they've used it to generate what looks like a land 2D. And by the way, they have a 3D version. So that's pretty cool too. Don't forget, this is all within 11 days so far. Okay, but what's the point in having just this? Like, you're probably not going to have it as your PFP, and given that you've got gold mines and ore deposits, you're probably thinking that you can build stuff or mine things, right? So the team released some information that confirmed that these terabits, these plots, are actually mining tokens from the upcoming Runes protocol. So there's a Runes protocol being released post-halving, and that's a separate topic on its own, but the most notable one, of course, is Runestone that was dropped. And what it's going to do is open up so many opportunities for tokens to be generated and be able to be, traded on the Bitcoin network, which is absolutely massive. Now, the team have said that every terabit, according to their various calculations, are being allocated tokens daily. And there will be a time when there'll be a snapshot, and then post the Runes implementation, we will be airdropped. The holders will be airdropped these tokens. We don't know what the name will be yet, but I just thought of something. These are called terabits, right? Wasn't Luna called Terra Luna or something? I might be wrong, but it seems to ring a bell. That'll be kind of weird. Yeah. I wonder who's behind this project. Wouldn't be like a Korean guy, Do Kwon maybe. Anyway, so these tokens that we're going to receive are going to have utility. Right. So this is the exciting part about this project, and why I think it's worth looking into. Not only are these people doing something different with digital matter theory, but they're potentially going to be one of the few projects, once Runes protocol is implemented, that have something ready to go and backed by some interesting products, right? So Enter Runes is the next bit I'm going to take you into. So as we've mentioned previously, our goal was not to merely use block data for map generation. There we go. I just called it. I don't remember reading this part. I should pay more attention. We aim to see how far we could leverage this data to create what we, in total seriousness, call non-arbitrary benefits. Now, the first non-arbitrary benefit we sought to introduce was the mining of runes. Okay, so developed by the visionary Casey Rodamore, also the creator of Ordinals. Runes offer a unique take on fungible tokens within the Bitcoin ecosystem, and it gives you a comparison between BRC20 and the Runes protocol that's coming soon. And there are many advantages. Most advantageous is the bottom one here, lightning compatible, which means that it's going to be very quick to transact, and you need that with any kind of token. You can't be waiting 10 minutes on average for a block to mine for your transfers to take place. It's just not the same. And the whole, if it's a meme coin, like there will be meme coins on Runes protocol, even more important that things are very fast. Okay, anyway, moving on. So once again, our team entered the laboratory to crunch numbers and devise a balanced formula that ensures fair distribution of runes, with each resource on the map influencing the mining process. Ultimately, it is the block data originally inscribed that acts as the deciding factor. So such and such, and this equation assigns every terabit with a comma strength at which you can filter by on Magic Eden. So they added this. So this is one of the things that I like about this team. They keep releasing things that make things better. So this wasn't here before. You had to try and work out the calculation yourself. They gave the formula, and you had to go on. Someone made a spreadsheet, which is really cool. So the community is pretty cool as well. But now they've categorized them, so it's much easier to tell which ones are giving you more runes each day. So at the end of each day, 1 million runes are distributed proportionally among all Terabits based on their commerce strength. There you go. And this distribution will continue for a determined number of days. Runes produced are associated with every inscription. At the end of this period, we'll take a snapshot and all runes will be counted. The wallet containing each inscription as of the snapshot date will receive cumulative amount of runes generated by the held inscriptions. All right, that's cool. So they're coming up with a dashboard which will tell you all of these numbers and give you an insight into how many runes that you're eligible for. But the most exciting part, right, is this. What can I use runes for? Our team is committed to maintaining secrecy until the final phases of each development. This approach enables us to maneuver with flexibility and agility. While the specific use cases for runes are under consideration, we're exploring various applications to ensure their enduring value both for users and collectors. Be assured that our goal is not to launch yet another meme coin into the market. A couple of things here. First of all, maintaining secrecy until the final phases of each development and giving them maneuverability is very important, because the space is very dynamic, especially DMTs. And by the time the halving comes in about a month, things could change. There could be even more exciting things that have been developed on DMT. So this approach, I think, is very good. You never want to commit yourself to something and then have everyone excited about it and then needing to change it, right? If it's changing for the better, then it's okay. But I think it's much safer to approach it this way. As for this last part, be assured that our goal is not to launch yet another meme coin into the market. Now that's interesting because meme coins, obviously, they have their place. I'm not a meme coin person, but plenty of people make money from trading meme coins. Like, I'm not a trader. I would much prefer tokens that have utility, like real world, well, not real world, but real use case. And some of the things I can see with Runes Protocol once it's released is that certain tokens will have utility that are exclusive to that token. So for example, this team could come out with an amazing 3D AR enabled piece of art, right? And they might say it's limited to 500. And here is the artist that's doing it. And it could be a big name, for example. It's all hypothetical. And the only payment we're going to accept are these tokens. The tokens that were generated by TerraBits. That would be interesting, because if you don't have TerraBits, then you wouldn't have the tokens. You would have to go and purchase them externally on the secondary. So that would drive the token price up. So supply and demand, simple economics. So these types of opportunities are going to open up for not just projects to develop themselves, but also for external parties. So someone could say, whatever the runestone tokens are going to be called, there's 90,000 unique holders, right? If you're smart and you're about to launch something, you might say, oh, I'm only selling them for those, I'm only accepting payment using those tokens. And bang, you have 90,000 people that are already potentially your customers, and you're creating that kind of exclusivity. Is that a word? I think so. So that's pretty cool. And okay, you might say, well, why don't you just say sell it for Bitcoin, because everyone has Bitcoin. Yeah, that's cool too. But there's that element of like making it like a exclusive club. I think that kind of, from a marketing perspective, I think that gives a little bit of prestige to your product. Anyway, I'm not a marketing person, so I could be completely wrong, but what I'm saying is that this team appear to have plans on giving these tokens utility, and that's what's exciting for me. On top of what I've seen in the last 11 days, I don't think that it would be possible for an average team or like your run-of-the-mill founder that's anonymous and just kind of comes out of nowhere. I'm not sure that you could set this up in 11 days. And because I've been pretty much here from maybe the second day or the third day. So I'm in the Discord every day and I've seen the consistent updates that they've been giving. I think the Terra book is written very, very well. So my guess is that there are some pretty smart people behind this, which is always good if you're going to back something or put your money into a project. I always prefer backing teams that have really good devs because the opportunities are limitless for people who are very good coders. So Terabits, I think, is a sleeping giant, and more people are waking up to it recently, especially in the last couple of days. I've seen a lot of sweeps and new faces in the Discord, but there's still ample opportunity, I think, to get in. The supply is so low. It's 2K supply, right? 449 owners. It's about 20-something%. And 22%, and it's pretty good. The distribution's very good. So here's the holder distribution, and if we go to the first page, the top person only has 5.7%, and as soon as you get to rank number 17, it's under 1%. So I think distribution is good. I'm happy with this, and most of all, I'm just happy with the progress. I think, by the way, this Twitter banner, that's new. I think that was, someone brought it up yesterday. Someone was like, was this always there? And we said, no, I don't think so. So you can see this is clearly like a 3D representation of the land. The forest is there, the land is there, the water is there, the mine is there, iron ore deposit is there. And who's to say that this won't end up being some kind of digital world? Someone in the Discord did mention like this feels like NFT worlds. That unfortunately doomed project thanks to Minecraft, who didn't want a bar of NFTs in their game. But hey, they rebranded to, I think it's Hytopia or something, and they're still doing quite well. Their floor is quite high. It's almost 2 ETH, I think. So yeah, these kinds of projects are very mentally stimulating for me, because there's an element of the unknown, and the potential for things to be built out is so much greater than a PFP, which in most cases are static. So you use the data, you generate the PFP, and that's it. I know that there are some dynamic ordinals that are being talked about at the moment, but I think that's in its fairly early stages. So yeah, I recommend that you have a look, at least DYOR, on this project. And there might be, I hear there's rumors that there could be a Twitter space, quite a high IQ Twitter space, like a geeky one where the topics might be like very difficult to understand, but I will try and break it down into simple English. But yeah, but there's Terabits for you. I hold a handful, obviously, full disclaimer, and I suggest, yeah, you pick up some whilst they're still affordable. All right, that is all, and I will see you for another video for another project that I've got my eyes on. Okay, catch you next time. Bye bye.